welcome to the final episode of Warped Worlds and the final episode in Planet Coaster 1. We are cutting it fine. We've got 2 days left, but I managed to complete the park in this episode, so I'm really pleased about that and glad to get it finished. We're working on an entire themed land in this episode, and that themed land is the future area. And when you think of future, you normally think of sci-fi and that sort of thing, which isn't something I'm particularly good at doing. It's not one of my strong points, but I feel like I created something interesting. Not particularly realistic at all. This area is very much a fantasy style land. As you can see, I've dug out a huge lake and I'm building a single rail coaster, an RMC, or something that's meant to resemble that. I don't know if this game originally came out before that coaster even existed, to be honest. The track, I've always thought, is a little bit thick for the actual coaster type that this is resembling, but nevertheless I built an interesting enough layout with a few inversions and a few helixes over the lake. It's probably not as compact as one of these is in real life, but it worked out fine for this area and what we're trying to do. So I start off with quite a steep lift hill and a slightly beyond vertical drop, and then it comes around into some helixes. Obviously I had in mind sort of the sight lines and the theming that I wanted this coaster to interact with as I was building it. So it takes several different attempts to get the layout right, and to start with it wasn't getting enough momentum to complete the layout, so I had to raise the lift hill and give it a bit more height, and it's probably much higher than I wanted it to be, but you can't put a launch on this coaster, which would have been the easy way to do it, even though that's not realistic at all for this coaster type. Or as far as I can think of anyway, I might be wrong. There might be some launched ones somewhere. So then, now that the coaster layout's complete, change the colour and start working on the theming. Again, I wanted to do this with speed in mind as well as making something interesting, because I was really tight for time. It did take me quite a while to complete this area, probably most of the weekend just gone. But a lot of the trial and error stuff is cut out of this time lapse because I wanted to keep the time lapse fairly short. And at this point I start working on something that just come together by accident really. And I thought it looks kind of cool, so I thought I was going to use it as a big centerpiece for the area with the coaster going in and out of it. I'm not sure what it's meant to be. It's just some crazy dome using over 1,000 pieces, and yeah, I just thought the shape was really cool. It actually looks like something that you'd probably see for a dome in Planet Zoo. Obviously there'd be a load of glass pieces over it as well if that were the case, but yeah, it's something different. I haven't really done anything like this before in Planet Coaster, so yeah, I was quite impressed with how easily it actually came together, even though it wasn't really my intention to do anything like this. But yeah, it worked out quite well. And that's pretty much the bulk of it. I don't do anything else to this structure. It just sort of sits there with the coaster and the pathwork and the flat ride interacting with it. The flat ride I decided on right at the start of the build because I thought it would work well for this area. It's kind of like an enterprise type ride, I believe. And with that I work on the queue line, so we're just doing a bit of cattle pen stuff and then meandering around on the flat land area, so it's not just all over the water, and I thought that would be much easier when it comes to doing the theming for it. So yeah, it's quite difficult sometimes to theme an area that's all over water, but yeah, I managed to come up with something that I thought was fairly cool. And then the next thing I'm working on is these random structures, which this was sort of my original idea, to have something like this in place, and it just basically looks a bit sci-fi and gives that sort of idea, really. Maybe this is a sort of space harbour or something crazy like that, I don't know. But yeah, I build several different sizes of this one. I do end up changing this one and making it a bit bigger actually, because I wanted it more snug with the track, so that ends up getting changed. And then you can see me doing a much bigger one with the inside curve as well, because I wanted it to be sort of free flowing and not just circular structures, and I wanted a bit of a variation with it. And you can see how it all comes together obviously in the thumbnail, and this is just how I'm working on it. I blueprint that because I can't duplicate it, so I wanted to blueprint it before I started taking it apart in case I changed my mind with how it was, and then I'd have lost the original. So that made sense to do it that way. And then the more I sort of build, the easier it becomes, really. Here you can see I'm just playing about with this part of the structure. This changes several times as well to fit in with the area of theming, and then I just try and close it off on the ends using smaller bits, and that's all absolutely fine, no real dramas putting that in. And yeah, this is like completely sort of out of my comfort zone really for theming, and something completely different that I've not tried before in the game. So I thought, as we're coming to an end, and this is probably the last time I'm going to play Planet Coaster 1, let's go out with a bang and make something really outlandish and crazy. And the pieces I'm using are pretty much all from the diner pieces, the diner set. They work perfectly for sci-fi futuristic stuff, and I'm using some sci-fi lamps as well to add a bit of lighting, because obviously this is going to be quite important to get the lighting right in this area as well. And once I put them on one structure, obviously I then have to put them everywhere else, so it took quite a lot of time rather to get all the lighting in. And then for the roof for this structure, I just thought I'll use basic shapes because it's the easiest thing to use and the easiest thing to manipulate, and again just trying to keep everything as straightforward as possible so that it's not too time consuming. All in all, I'm actually really happy with the amount of time it took to get this together, and I've sort of met my own deadline really. Yesterday afternoon I finally bought Planet Coaster 2, and I even stretched out for the $54.99 or whatever it was for the deluxe edition, so that we get the additional rides as well, which is quite controversial. I kind of think that they should be part of the base game. I think there's like a carousel and a Helter Skelter. For me, they're not really additional rides, they're base game rides, but never mind, it's done now. I bought it, so I can look forward to 2 more sleeps now till Blanco 2 arrives. And so far, looking at other content on YouTube, it's looking fantastic. I really like the graphic style and the pieces from what I've seen so far, and I'm looking forward to having a go. And not sure when the first video will be up, because I'm not sure what I'm going to do first. I'm not going to get straight into a park. I do have something in mind that I want to do. I've got a couple of themes in mind that I've not tried before that I want to give a try. But firstly, I want to get used to the game, so my first couple of builds will probably just be one-off coasters, or just playing around with the scenery pieces and seeing what's there. So yeah, watch this space really for new content, I guess. So you can see I put a couple of shops in, or a few shops, and just keeping things really simple there, putting them into the wall that we've already got, utilising what I've already made as to not waste any more time building a separate restaurant building or anything like that. The pathwork in this area isn't great, to be honest. It's pretty bodged, but it's fine. I've also put in some sort of support structure type things, just to make it look like there's some mechanical stuff going on. I don't know really, I was just chucking pieces down, seeing what looked good, using a few of the sci-fi set pieces as well, which are rather large. None of this is really to scale at all, it's just, it is what it is really. I'm quite pleased with how these cannon type structures look as well. Not cannons, are they? They're like spaceship engines or something, but I just put them together in an interesting way, and yeah, I think they look quite cool. We've got one crashed in the water as well. And then I move on to the queue line and just putting in some different planting, using some purples and some reds and stuff to make it look like it's sort of Martian planting, out of this world stuff, you know. And then finally working on the coaster station, which was a bit of a faff to make, to be honest. These pillars went up nice and easily, they're very, very straightforward, and then just some walls round the bottom to hold it all in. But this bit is the thing I struggled with. It was inspired by the big structure that I made earlier, so I promise I will stop saying structure soon. And yeah, I wanted some of these domes on the roof. I don't think they work really that well for this rectangle shaped building, but you know, I've made them and I just wanted to get it done, so we stick with that idea and then just copy a few of them across and complete it all. But again, a lot of the trial and error is cut out of the speed build because I didn't want it to get too lengthy and too much of the boring stuff in, because there's a lot of moving stuff ever so slightly using that with the angle snap off, which obviously takes its time and is quite frustrating. I couldn't get everything perfectly aligned, so I had to really play about with it, and I'm sure it's not perfect anyway, but it's good enough, and that's where we're at now with this. And then finally I put on some glass pieces, so some purple glass, and that actually makes it look a lot better and obviously completes it, keeps the station enclosed, which is always good. You can see there's a couple of scenery pieces around the station as well, so we've got like the helmet stands inside the station, and there's some big sci-fi pieces there outside the station. I don't know what they are, but they look kind of cool. Yeah, since I first started playing the game, I've hardly ever used these pieces, at least not what they're intended for anyway. But yeah, there we go, the roof structure is now on, and we move on to lighting. And I thought that it would look cool to have the lift hill and the first drop lit up. I didn't want to do the whole layout, but I think that looks kind of cool. And then there's just a lot of spotlights and area lights and some really generic sci-fi lampposts that I end up using as well. But the spotlights, yeah, we put some on coaster supports to point at the dome and light it all up. And that's kind of it, you know. That's kind of it for the build. We've done a whole themed area in 15 minutes, so pretty impressive. Last thing, sign there. So thank you very much for watching. If you've watched this entire series and my other series, I can't thank you enough. And I will see you all next time in Planet Coaster 2. Bring it on. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.